And I said, well, what about all these journal articles? What about all this? He said, you've been reading too much. You should get off the internet. And I am so glad he said that to me, because that is what made me say, the hell with you. I'm going to find someone that will listen to me. Evan was 8 weeks premature, so he was in the NICU, and almost immediately he had a whole host of specialists in his life. We knew right off the bat that something wasn't really right. The reason he was in the NICU for so long was because he had an undeveloped digestive system. And because he was in emergency surgery, he was an emergency C-section, he never got any of my good gut bacteria going through the birth canal. I didn't know at the time that that meant his immune system was compromised. He would constantly get sick, he would be put on an antibiotic, and then they would give him antifungals for his thrush. He had athlete's foot, very, very young age, very bad cradle cap. And I didn't realize that that's indicative of a systemic something going on in the gut. I had no idea. Every doctor I went said, oh, well, he has Italian descent. He'll probably have acne as a teenager. Don't worry about it.
How about crawl? You want to do crawl too?
Oops. He was 2.5 before he took his first steps. You put him in front of something, he wasn't reaching for toys. He was just staring into space. One particular time, he was sitting at the kitchen table and he was having breakfast or something, and he was just totally staring, like, I was really worried. I was like, something is wrong with him. And I said, Evan, what are you doing? He's like, I want to go home. And I'm like, we are home. He goes, no, home. And this was really worrisome. So I finally, at around 4.5, took him to see a speech pathologist and an autism specialist, and they said, yeah, he definitely has many features.
Walk to Lena.
We got the diagnosis of apraxia, which is basically a motor planning problem. Also, to be on the autistic spectrum, they also diagnosed him with PDD, pervasive developmental disorder. My aunt, who is a champion of alternative medicine, forever, she actually cured her own breast cancer. And she kept telling me, oh, Jen, he has food sensitivities. Look at those dark circles. Ignore, ignore, ignore. I'm the mom, because I was in a bit of denial. Let's just say I was in a lot of denial. Finally, the thing that changed my whole life was that she gave me an article about malabsorption issues in children with autism and apraxia. It was a study done on like 250 children, and that they were supplementing them with fatty acids, omega-3, vitamin E, and some other things, healing their gut, pulling gluten and dairy. Developmental issues improve, apraxia, speech improves, behavior. And it just like the light bulb went on, then all of a sudden, like my husband couldn't take me anymore, because every night I was up reading like 50 books. I was like, there's something I could do about this. This is medical. This is a medical disorder. This is an autoimmune disorder. So we went to this GI doctor, and I said to him, could he have a gluten sensitivity? They said, nope, he doesn't have celiac. We checked for that. And I said, well, what about all these journal articles? What about all this? He said, you've been reading too much. You should get off the internet. And I am so glad he said that to me, because that is what made me say, the hell with you. I'm going to find someone that will listen to me.
He had a lot of GI symptoms, specifically constipation. He had some behavior issues, which is common with kids on the spectrum. He had focusing difficulty. So first off, we started doing a lot of testing involving GI evaluation. We looked at if there is any candida overgrowth. We looked at heavy metal toxicity. We did a urine test to look at what his heavy metal composition was. So once we started changing his diet and also working homeopathic remedies and with probiotics, he showed significant improvement within the first 1 week of making all these changes.
Evan was going through a lot of overexcitement. He had anxiety, he had OCD, he did a lot of stimming when the kids will flap. We had a lot of sleep problems, so his whole nervous system was overactive. He had really low levels of dopamine. We started to find genetic influences on this, and there's natural therapies that bring all of these up. And when we were able to give Evan the brain chemistry he needs for his brain to work properly, that's when he started to improve.
Evan, you got a yellow in there?
The only thing I have is yellow is this cord.
We noticed there was some still social deficits. He seemed a little OCD still. He was very rigid, like he would line up all his toys. And we took him to brain balance therapy, and we got him tested, and we realized that even though with everything I did, there were still deficits.
So we look at imbalances in the brain. Certain parts of the brain are maturing and growing at a faster, stronger rate, but other parts of the brain are not growing as strong and are weaker, and therefore they're not able to connect and coordinate. So depending on what hemisphere of the brain is involved, through a very comprehensive assessment that we do, a functional assessment, we could actually see where the weaknesses are, what side of the brain is imbalanced, and then through a series of stimulatory activities that get these neurons to start to fire and wire and grow, we get them to start connecting together, and now this beautiful symphony of the neurology in the brain starts to all work together.
What's your favorite subject in school?
Math. I'm very good at math.
You are?
Give me a math problem and I'll solve it.
Okay, math problem and you'll solve it. How about 9 plus 3?
12.
Dude, you're like so fast, it's insane.
And then we're like driving to the bus stop one day and he looks out and it's like snow all over the place and he's like, Mom, doesn't that look like whipped cream on a nice big cake? Now for most people that would be like, what's the big deal on that? For him to make an association like that, to be able to connect the dots. People are starting to wake up. People are starting to recognize that recovery is possible, that this is not a life sentence, and that's what I'm here to say. It is not a life sentence. Kids get better, depending on how long the assaults have been occurring or how quickly the body can eliminate toxins, for example, will depend on how quickly the child will start seeing signs. But you start seeing glimmer of hope, you keep moving on. You keep moving forward. Evan says to me, thank you, Mom. Thank you for doing this for me. He goes, Mom, I really love myself now. I'm like, oh, thank God. Like, that's all we want. Like, right? That's all we want is for them to be happy about themselves and who they are.